In March 2026, an encrypted digital archive surfaced on the dark web, labeled simply Anunnaki, Forbidden Documentary. Metadata analysis suggested it originated from a classified research database, combining Sumerian archaeology, planetary astronomy, and genetic sequencing. Initial reviewers reported the content was not fictional. It contained primary sources, translated cuneiform tablets, high-resolution satellite images, and genetic data charts. The first frame showed a reconstructed relief from the ancient city of Ur, depicting 7 tall, elongated humanoids descending from the sky, their proportions far beyond any known human variation. The historian Dr. Elena Voss, specialized in Near Eastern studies and human evolutionary anomalies, received an anonymous tip to investigate the leak. Her initial skepticism vanished within seconds of viewing the first segment. Radiocarbon dating of the tablets referenced in the documentary placed them between 3500 and 3000 BCE, correlating precisely with the rise of Uruk and the establishment of Ur-Nammu's codified laws. Within these texts, she noted repeated references to gold extraction operations and a class of beings called the Anunnaki, explicitly described as those who came from above to manage resources critical to survival. The documentary compiled astronomical observations with Sumerian records. The Anunnaki were associated with a hypothetical planetary body, Nibiru, posited to orbit the Sun every 3,600 years. The documentary cross-referenced anomalies in the asteroid belt, unusual perturbations in the orbits of outer planets, and isotopic anomalies in lunar and Martian meteorites, suggesting a gravitational influence of a massive, distant object. Contemporary studies by NASA and ES partially corroborated these anomalies, though conventional science avoided public attribution to Nibiru due to lack of direct observation. Genetic data was the most shocking. The documentary presented sequences extracted from ancient human remains in Mesopotamia, showing patterns inconsistent with Homo sapiens' known mutation rates. Specifically, certain alleles linked to neurological development and height appeared abruptly around 12,000 years ago, coinciding with the construction of Göbekli Tepe. Dr. Voss recognized the significance. Human evolution, according to mainstream theory, progresses gradually. These data implied external intervention, precisely aligning with Sumerian descriptions of the Anunnaki creating hybrids capable of complex labor and advanced cognition. A timeline reconstructed from the documentary traced the initial arrival of these beings to approximately 450,000 years ago, establishing temporary mining colonies. Radiometric analyses of ore samples from purported ancient mining sites revealed isotopic enrichment consistent with extraterrestrial contamination. The documentary hypothesized that the Anunnaki's goal was to harvest gold to stabilize their planet's atmosphere, a planet theorized to be Nibiru, using primitive humans as laborers. Dr. Voss paused as the video detailed the first genetic experiment, a hybridization process called Adamu Project. Unlike speculative fiction, the documentary provided schematics, DNA mapping simulations, and comparative analysis with later human populations. The footage linked ancient Sumerian texts to the biblical Adam, suggesting a literal, genetic interpretation of creation myths. Statistical modeling within the documentary indicated that the hybrid humans exhibited 37% higher cognitive processing in spatial tasks and a 42% increase in muscle density relative to pre-existing Homo sapiens. The documentary concluded the opening segment with a chilling proposition. Traces of Anunnaki DNA persist in modern humans, encoded in non-coding regions, potentially activating under specific environmental or technological stimuli. For Dr. Voss, the implications were staggering. Entire fields of archaeology, genetics, and astronomy might need re-evaluation. She leaned back in her chair, heart pounding. The screen flashed. The Anunnaki may return. Are we ready? For viewers, like this video, subscribe for updates on the latest Anunnaki research, and leave your thoughts in the comments below. The forbidden knowledge has begun to surface, and humanity is on the brink of understanding its true origins. In March 2026, an encrypted digital archive surfaced on the dark web, labeled Anunnaki, Forbidden Documentary. Metadata analysis indicated that the source was a combination of archaeological databases, satellite imaging archives, and restricted genetic research files. Experts who initially reviewed snippets confirmed the authenticity of the materials. This was not fiction. The first frame displayed a reconstruction from the ruins of Ur, depicting 7 tall humanoids, 3 to 4 meters in height, with elongated skulls and disproportionately large heads, descending from a star-studded sky. Dr. Elena Voss, a historian specializing in Near Eastern civilizations and anomalous human evolution, obtained the file. The first segments showed translated Sumerian cuneiform tablets, dated between 3500 to 3000 BCE, referencing Anunnaki, literally those who came from above, assigned to manage Earth's resources. These texts described vast mining operations in southern Mesopotamia, specifying the extraction of gold in quantities far exceeding what humans could consume or store. Geological analysis of ancient mine sites revealed isotopic anomalies consistent with extraterrestrial contamination, hinting at advanced technology unknown to human civilizations of that era. The documentary presented a chronological reconstruction, linking human development surges to Anunnaki interventions. For millennia, humans existed in relative technological stagnation, with only incremental advancements. Yet within a span of 12,000 years, monumental achievements, Göbekli Tepe, early metallurgy, and advanced agriculture emerged. Genetic evidence from skeletal remains suggested sudden allelic changes, enhanced cognitive processing, increased muscle density, and unusual cranial dimensions appearing abruptly in the archaeological record. The documentary argued these changes coincided with Anunnaki manipulation. Astronomical data were highlighted to support the existence of Nibiru, the hypothesized home planet of the Anunnaki. Calculations suggested a highly elliptical orbit around the Sun, completing a revolution approximately every 3,600 Earth years. Observed perturbations in the asteroid belt and orbital anomalies beyond Neptune were presented as indirect evidence, while historical Sumerian texts described it as a golden orb returning from the distant horizon. Scholars debating Nibiru's existence noted that while direct observation remains elusive, gravitational modeling aligns with these ancient accounts. Central to the documentary was the Adamu Project, the genetic hybridization between Anunnaki and early humans. Detailed schematics illustrated selective genome manipulation, combining Anunnaki alleles for intelligence and physical capability with human adaptability. Early trials produced mutations and failures. Giant cyclopean figures and malformed hybrids recorded in myth as monsters. Success came only when one Anunnaki female served as a surrogate, resulting in the birth of Adamu, considered by some researchers the precursor to Homo sapiens in the Sumerian narrative. The documentary cross-referenced mythologies worldwide, showing remarkable parallels. The creation of humans in divine image, the sudden leaps in civilization, and catastrophic events interpreted as divine punishment. floods, droughts, and celestial interventions. Cuneiform text described Enki instructing humans to build irrigation, dwellings, and temples, transferring knowledge while enforcing labor in mining operations. Isotopic studies of gold artifacts from Mesopotamia, Egypt, and Anatolia suggest that precious metals were extracted at unprecedented scales, supporting the theory of systemic exploitation. Perhaps the most striking evidence came from modern genetics. Analysis of non-coding regions of contemporary human DNA revealed sequences absent in earlier Homo sapiens remains, but corresponding to markers identified in the ancient Mesopotamian samples. Statistical modeling indicated these sequences may influence cognition, spatial awareness, and even behavioral predispositions. If these correlations hold, it implies that the Anunnaki's influence may persist within modern populations. The documentary concluded with a chilling warning. The Anunnaki are not definitively gone. Nibiru's orbital calculations suggest the next approach could occur within a millennium. Historical records, flood myths, and modern anomalies, satellite data, unexplained geophysical events, may all be signs of their lingering presence. The digital archive closed with the stark message, "Are we prepared to recognize our origins before they intervene again?" For viewers, if you want to continue uncovering the Anunnaki's secrets, make sure to like this video, subscribe for updates, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Forbidden knowledge is no longer hidden, and the implications could reshape human history. Archaeological evidence places the emergence of urban civilization in southern Mesopotamia around 4500 BCE. Cities such as Uruk, Eridu, and Ur became hubs of administrative and technological development. Within these settlements, cuneiform tablets describe extensive mining operations in regions now identified as the Sinai Peninsula and the Zagros Mountains. These records, often attributed to the Anunnaki, repeatedly mention gold as a resource of unparalleled value, not for local use, but for celestial purposes. Geochemical analysis of ore remnants in ancient mining shafts reveal isotopic signatures inconsistent with terrestrial formation alone, suggesting extraterrestrial processing or enrichment. Stratigraphic data indicates systematic excavation extending hundreds of meters into bedrock, with evidence of organized labor far beyond what contemporaneous human populations could have managed without external guidance. The Sumerians themselves wrote of supervisors descending from the heavens, interpreted by some as literal accounts of Anunnaki overseers coordinating operations. The documentary meticulously cross-references these accounts with astronomical data. Early Sumerian star charts demonstrate knowledge of planetary motion and celestial events with remarkable precision, incorporating the orbital path of Nibiru, which allegedly orbits the Sun every 3,600 Earth years. Computational models indicate that, had such a planet existed, its gravitational influence could have generated minor perturbations in the asteroid belt, detectable in modern orbital simulations. While mainstream astronomy disputes the existence of Nibiru, the alignment of ancient texts with present-day anomalies raises compelling questions about the transmission of astronomical knowledge. Genetic analysis from skeletal remains at Ur shows a sudden increase in cranial capacity and skeletal robustness beginning around 3200 BCE. Morphological studies suggest selective breeding or genetic enhancement coinciding with the era of intensive mining. The documentary posits that early humans were employed as laborers under Anunnaki supervision, performing complex extraction tasks requiring coordination, endurance, and basic tool use. Failure to meet quotas, as described in texts, often resulted in punitive measures, further corroborating the existence of a structured command hierarchy imposed by an external authority. Artifacts from this period reveal advanced metallurgical processes. Gold artifacts demonstrate high purity levels with minimal contamination and evidence of heat treatment beyond known capabilities of contemporary human technology. Laboratory simulations of ancient smelting techniques suggest that achieving such results would require precise temperature control, atmospheric regulation, and chemical knowledge unlikely to have been independently discovered by early Sumerians. This lends credence to the hypothesis that the Anunnaki supplied both technological expertise and physical oversight. The documentary further examines hydraulic engineering as an example of human-Anunnaki collaboration. Irrigation canals stretching for tens of kilometers were constructed with consistent gradient and flow control, facilitating agricultural productivity sufficient to sustain large urban populations. Architectural surveys indicate that such planning would necessitate advanced mathematical understanding, including geometry and measurement systems, which align with the advanced numeracy attributed to the Anunnaki. Perhaps most intriguing are references to a hierarchy of Anunnaki operatives. Enki and Enlil, sons of Anu, are depicted as administrators responsible for workforce allocation and resource management. Enki, in particular, is linked to experimental genetic manipulation, introducing enhancements in cognitive and physical abilities in human populations. The documentary correlates these accounts with abrupt leaps in technological innovation, such as the invention of the wheel, the plow, and early sailboats, all occurring within centuries of the supposed arrival of the Anunnaki. Satellite imagery and geophysical surveys of ancient mining sites show alignment with cardinal points, suggesting astronomical observation guided extraction efforts. In combination with cuneiform descriptions, this indicates a sophisticated integration of celestial navigation, geology, and industrial logistics. Gold, extracted under these parameters, may have been used in atmospheric or planetary engineering on Nibiru, as posited by the documentary, with modern analogs showing gold's efficacy in radiation shielding and conductivity. The synthesis of archaeological, genetic, and astronomical data paints a consistent picture. Humanity's early industrial and technological achievements in Sumer were not solely the product of organic evolution. The Anunnaki, through advanced planning, selective breeding, and knowledge transfer, orchestrated a rapid acceleration in human capability, laying the foundation for civilization as we know it. As the segment concluded, the documentary emphasized a chilling assertion. All recorded advances in Sumerian civilization occurred under the supervision of those who were not of this earth. Their fingerprints remain in our genetics, our technology, and our myths. Once the Anunnaki mining operations on Earth were fully operational, their attention turned to the limitations of the human workforce. Archaeogenetic studies indicate that early Homo sapiens, while adaptive and capable of tool use, lacked the physical strength and cognitive specialization required for intensive or extraction in hostile environments. Sumerian cuneiform records describe a project of perfection, wherein Enki, the Anunnaki scientist, attempted to enhance humans through selective breeding and genetic intervention. The documentary presents a timeline of these experiments. Early attempts involve crossbreeding humans with modified primates, producing partial successes. Humanoid beings with enhanced size or intelligence, but with severe physiological deformities. Anthropological reconstructions, based on skeletal remains from Mesopotamia and Anatolia, reveal anomalies consistent with these accounts. Elongated limbs, cranial asymmetries, and unusual bone densities, suggesting interventions not explainable by natural evolution alone. Many of these experimental lineages appear to have ended abruptly, possibly through culling or abandonment, correlating with mythological depictions of monstrous beings like cyclopes or giants. After repeated failures, Enki applied a more controlled approach. Using advanced reproductive techniques, likely involving uterine surrogacy and precise genome mapping, he produced the first viable human Anunnaki hybrid, Adamu. Ancient texts describe him as created in the image of those from above, a phrase echoed in multiple creation myths. The documentary highlights the correlation between Adamu's introduction and the sudden emergence of advanced human traits, enhanced cognitive reasoning, fine motor skills, and accelerated learning capacity. Genetic simulations indicate that these modifications would increase neural connectivity by 30 to 40%, supporting advanced tool use and problem-solving capabilities far beyond contemporaneous Homo sapiens. The documentary also presents an interdisciplinary analysis of myths, linking Adamu to figures in religious texts, including the biblical Adam. Comparative study of Sumerian, Akkadian, and Babylonian records shows remarkably consistent terminology describing a progenitor created from a blend of divine and terrestrial material. This convergence supports the hypothesis that cultural memory preserved accounts of genetic intervention, interpreted as mythological narrative. Furthermore, isotopic studies of ancient skeletons indicate accelerated growth rates during the period following Adamu's creation, consistent with the documentary's assertion that hybridization aimed to produce physically superior laborers. Skeletal analysis reveals increased bone mineral density and altered muscle attachment points, allowing for enhanced strength, endurance, and precision, critical attributes for mining operations spanning hundreds of meters into bedrock. The documentary contextualizes these experiments within the broader scope of Anunnaki technology. Advanced metallurgy, irrigation, and urban planning are temporally correlated with the appearance of hybrid populations. This suggests that the Anunnaki selectively enhanced humans to serve not only as miners, but as agents capable of understanding and implementing technological directives. Records describe a division of labor. Hybrids were given higher autonomy in operational tasks, while baseline humans performed repetitive physical labor. Ethical considerations are discussed in the documentary through anthropological lenses. While these modifications improved efficiency, they also created early social hierarchies and potential behavioral divergence between hybrids and unmodified humans. Some hybrid populations, according to mythic accounts, exhibited early forms of self-awareness, complex emotional responses, and ritualized behaviors. Traits the Anunnaki may have observed as indicators of success in their genetic experiments. Adamu's descendants became the foundation for early Sumerian society. The documentary emphasizes that human culture, technology, and even religion were directly influenced by these interventions. Artifacts, temple layouts, and urban planning demonstrate a level of cognitive sophistication unlikely to emerge without external guidance. The hybrid lineages enabled humans to process abstract concepts, develop language structures, and implement large-scale construction, all essential for managing mining operations, cities, and eventually the codification of laws under Ur-Nammu. Finally, the documentary raises the critical question: if Adamu represents the first successful hybrid, could remnants of Anunnaki DNA persist in modern humans? Preliminary genomic analyses hint at rare allelic sequences consistent with ancient intervention, particularly in regions associated with cognitive and structural development. While controversial, these findings suggest that the legacy of Adamu extends far beyond mythology and into our very genome. As Dr. Elena Voss watched the footage, she noted the chilling implication. Humanity's evolution was not entirely self-directed. The Anunnaki had fundamentally altered the trajectory of human development, leaving genetic signatures that persist to this day. The concept of Nibiru, the hypothesized homeworld of the Anunnaki, emerges from ancient Sumerian astronomical texts. These texts describe a massive celestial body with a highly elliptical orbit, returning to the inner solar system approximately every 3,600 Earth years. While dismissed by mainstream astronomy as mythological, contemporary research reveals subtle orbital anomalies in the outer solar system that cannot be fully explained by the gravitational influence of known planets. Recent simulations, based on perturbations in the trajectories of trans-Neptunian objects, suggest the presence of a large, distant body. Some astronomers refer to it as Planet 9, while others speculate about an undiscovered 12th planet, echoing Sumerian nomenclature for Nibiru. Calculations indicate that a body of sufficient mass could generate measurable effects on comet paths, asteroid belts, and even the stability of the outer planets over millennia. These models correlate intriguingly with cuneiform observations, where precise measurements of Jupiter, Saturn, and Venus were recorded relative to the supposed path of Nibiru. The documentary examines the environmental implications for Nibiru's inhabitants. Geochemical studies of gold suggest it may have been used to reflect solar radiation, reduce atmospheric contamination, or serve as a conductive medium in planetary engineering. The Anunnaki, according to the texts, required vast quantities of gold to stabilize Nibiru's atmosphere, explaining the focus on Earth's gold deposits. Geological and isotopic analyses from ancient Mesopotamian mines show a level of sophistication in extraction techniques that suggests knowledge far beyond what humans of the era could develop independently. Astronomical cross-referencing with Earth's own geological record indicates that Nibiru's proximity may have induced periodic cataclysmic events. The alignment of certain flood myths, abrupt climate shifts, and tectonic disturbances approximately every 3,600 years implies a repeating external influence. Sediment core analysis from multiple continents shows synchronous anomalies, layers enriched in heavy metals, sudden changes in ocean salinity, and evidence of mega-flood events. These could correspond to tidal effects induced by a massive passing body. The documentary further links Nibiru's orbit to Sumerian religious structures. Ziggurats aligned to specific celestial points may have served as observation platforms for tracking the planet's approach. This correlation is strengthened by archaeoastronomy. Precise solar and planetary alignments in Ur, Uruk, and Eridu suggest the architects understood the mechanics of elongated orbits. Such knowledge would have been crucial for planning resource extraction, labor allocation, and predicting environmental impacts. Analyses of stellar records indicate that the Anunnaki may have used advanced instrumentation for orbital calculation. The documentary presents reconstructions of devices inferred from Sumerian diagrams, resembling mechanical computers capable of predicting Nibiru's path. These reconstructions demonstrate an understanding of gravitational interactions, orbital resonance, and long-term planetary cycles. If accurate, it suggests that the Anunnaki possessed an empirical framework of astronomy comparable to modern celestial mechanics. Further, satellite imaging of ancient gold mining regions reveals patterning aligned with both cardinal points and celestial events. The precision of these layouts indicates knowledge of geospatial surveying far exceeding the capabilities of early humans. Gold transport routes correspond with predicted paths for moving massive quantities efficiently, while minimizing labor fatigue and exposure to environmental hazards. The documentary postulates that this efficiency reflects the Anunnaki's application of advanced engineering principles, integrating planetary observation, geology, and logistics. Finally, the segment considers the implications for modern humanity. If Nibiru exists and follows a predictable orbit, its next approach could coincide with observable gravitational effects on Earth, potentially altering climate, tectonics, and ocean levels. The Anunnaki, as recorded in Sumerian texts, left instruments and markers to monitor these cycles, implying an ongoing interest in Earth's stability. Dr. Elena Voss concluded the segment with a striking observation. The orbital mechanics of Nibiru and its potential influence on Earth offer a scientific explanation for myths, floods, and unexplained technological leaps. The Anunnaki's legacy may be written not only in our DNA, but in the trajectories of planets and asteroids. The Anunnaki's resource operations on Earth eventually triggered large-scale environmental disruptions. Sediment core analysis from river deltas in Mesopotamia, the Nile Basin, and the Indus Valley reveals abrupt layers of alluvial deposition consistent with rapid flooding events. Radiocarbon dating places these layers at roughly 3,500 to 3,000 BCE, coinciding with the historical period when Sumerian texts described catastrophic floods that reshaped cities and forced population migrations. Hydrological modeling suggests that the extraction of massive quantities of gold and other minerals, combined with the manipulation of river channels and irrigation systems, altered sedimentation rates and groundwater flow. Additionally, the gravitational influence of a passing massive celestial body, possibly Nibiru, as reconstructed from Sumerian astronomical records, could have induced oceanic bulges and anomalous tides, amplifying flood severity. Cuneiform texts provide further corroboration. Tablets describe sudden inundations of farmlands, destruction of storage silos, and cities abandoned almost overnight. Accounts attribute these events to divine wrath, but the documentary presents an alternative explanation. The Anunnaki's extraction processes, planetary alignments, and environmental engineering inadvertently destabilized Earth's hydrosphere. Some texts explicitly mention warnings from Enki, suggesting that controlled measures were taken to preserve select populations and essential resources. Genetic studies of human remains from the flood-affected regions indicate sudden shifts in population demographics. Analysis of Y chromosome and mitochondrial DNA shows bottleneck events and the survival of lineages potentially enhanced by hybridization, consistent with the Adamu experiments. These survivors, according to the documentary, carried forward both advanced cognitive traits and physical resilience, forming the basis for post-flood civilizations. The documentary details the technological sophistication involved in these events. Simulations suggest that structures aligned with celestial markers, such as ziggurats and temple complexes, could have functioned as early monitoring stations for tidal and riverine levels. Gold, beyond its economic and symbolic value, may have been used in primitive atmospheric control experiments, reflecting sunlight or stabilizing local climates, supporting the theory that Anunnaki engineering had planetary-scale consequences. Flood myths from multiple cultures show remarkable parallels. The Mesopotamian account of Utnapishtim, Hindu mythology of Manu, Greek legends of Deucalion and Pyrrha, and Polynesian narratives of Nu. Each describes a select group surviving a global or regional deluge, suggesting either a shared ancestral memory or direct observation of extreme environmental events. The documentary posits that these myths may preserve factual records of the Anunnaki's extraction-related catastrophes, translated into cultural narrative. Geophysical surveys indicate that regions affected by the floods later became centers of rapid urban development. Soil fertility increased after sediment deposition, suggesting that post-catastrophe human settlements benefited from the ecological reset. The documentary hypothesizes that the Anunnaki may have selectively guided these survivors to rebuild, transferring knowledge in agriculture, construction, and mathematics. Artifacts such as advanced irrigation tools, early metallurgy, and architectural frameworks indicate a continuity of technical expertise that aligns with this controlled resurgence. Analysis of isotopic compositions in gold artifacts reveals extensive distribution networks. The transported gold shows consistent isotopic signatures with deposits in southern Mesopotamia and Anatolia, supporting the hypothesis that the Anunnaki systematically extracted and exported resources even during environmental crises. The coordination required for these operations implies sophisticated logistics, perhaps overseen by hybridized humans trained for both labor and administration. The documentary concludes the segment with a critical observation. The floods recorded in myth were not solely punitive, but were a consequence of systematic planetary resource management. The Anunnaki's interventions were both destructive and selective, shaping humanity's genetic and cultural future. Following the cataclysmic floods, the survivors of Mesopotamia emerged into a transformed landscape. Archaeological layers indicate a rapid reorganization of settlements and urban centers between 3000 to 2500 BCE, coinciding with the period after the Anunnaki's intervention. Cities such as Uruk and Ur show evidence of accelerated architectural development. Standardized bricks, complex drainage systems, and early fortifications suggest not incremental evolution, but the direct application of advanced engineering knowledge. The documentary emphasizes that the Anunnaki did not leave humanity unassisted. Tablets reference Enki instructing humans in agriculture, irrigation, and animal husbandry. Analysis of early irrigation canals reveals precise gradient measurements and hydraulic calculations that would have required knowledge of water flow, soil composition, and seasonal variations. The uniformity of canal widths and leveling, confirmed through LIDAR surveys of ancient Mesopotamian landscapes, indicates a deliberate transfer of applied engineering expertise. Metallurgical evidence supports this accelerated learning. Copper and bronze artifacts appear in post-flood layers with higher purity and more consistent alloy ratios than pre-flood artifacts. This precision suggests knowledge transfer, likely supervised or designed by Anunnaki hybrids, allowing early humans to exploit metal resources efficiently. Radiocarbon dating confirms that these developments occurred within a few generations, too rapid for purely organic evolution or trial and error learning. Cognitive enhancement is also evident. Linguistic analyses of Sumerian texts demonstrate a sudden expansion in vocabulary, syntactic complexity, and administrative notation. The emergence of Ur-Nammu, one of the earliest codified legal systems, reflects sophisticated conceptual thinking. The documentary posits that these advancements correlate with the integration of hybridized humans who inherited enhanced memory, reasoning, and problem-solving abilities from the Adamu project. Anthropometric data from skeletal remains show increases in cranial volume, suggesting neurological capacity consistent with advanced planning and abstract thought. The dissemination of knowledge extended beyond immediate survival. Astronomical records from this period, preserved on clay tablets, indicate precise observation of lunar cycles, planetary motion, and eclipses. The Anunnaki may have facilitated these studies, as understanding celestial mechanics was essential for predicting seasonal floods and optimizing agriculture. Mathematical constructs, such as the sexagesimal system, emerge simultaneously with astronomical observation, indicating integrated instruction in both theory and applied science. The documentary also highlights the development of trade networks. Standardized weights and measures, verified through artifact analysis, allowed early Mesopotamians to engage in complex commerce, transporting goods across hundreds of kilometers. The speed and accuracy of these exchanges imply the guidance of experienced administrators, likely hybrids or humans trained by Anunnaki intermediaries. This accelerated the spread of technology, culture, and urban organization across Sumer and into neighboring regions. Furthermore, the documentary presents evidence of early experimental science. Medical texts and botanical records show systematic observation, classification, and application of natural materials. Surviving tablets describe surgical techniques, plant-based remedies, and diagnostic methods that align with modern pharmacology. These developments suggest that the Anunnaki imparted both practical knowledge and the principles of empirical observation, establishing the foundations for systematic inquiry. Importantly, these advancements occurred alongside continued extraction of resources. Humans were simultaneously developing culture, agriculture, and governance while remaining subject to mining quotas. This dual role, the creation of a functional civilization while sustaining industrial exploitation, demonstrates the Anunnaki's long-term strategy, accelerating human capacity while maintaining control over the essential commodities needed for planetary stabilization. By the end of this era, human society displayed characteristics markedly advanced relative to pre-flood populations. Urban planning, legal systems, metallurgy, and astronomical understanding all point to a civilization under the guidance of entities possessing knowledge and intelligence far beyond early Homo sapiens. The documentary concludes this segment with a critical observation. Human advancement was not spontaneous. It was structured, orchestrated, and guided by external intelligence, leaving an enduring legacy that continues to influence our species today. After the establishment of human civilization under Anunnaki supervision, certain hybridization experiments continued in secrecy. Archaeogenetic data from skeletal remains in Mesopotamia, Anatolia, and the Levant indicate the presence of anomalous DNA sequences that do not appear in pre-flood Homo sapiens, but persist in low frequencies in modern populations. These sequences are associated with neural density, musculoskeletal development, and, intriguingly, resistance to environmental stressors. Cuneiform records reference secret offspring and those who walk between worlds, interpreted in the documentary as hybrid lineages deliberately created to combine Anunnaki genetic traits with local human populations. Anthropological reconstructions show that these individuals exhibited greater cranial volume, enhanced visual acuity, and above-average muscular development, suggesting a controlled genetic program aimed at producing humans capable of managing complex labor, leadership, and technological tasks. Some anomalies included unusually tall individuals, cranial elongation, and heightened cognitive capacity, consistent with Sumerian depictions of demigods. Skeletal analysis confirms that these traits are not mythological exaggerations, but reflect measurable physiological differences. For example, bone density measurements from hybrid specimens exceed average Homo sapiens by 15 to 25%, while cranial reconstructions indicate increased frontal lobe volume, correlating with advanced problem-solving and planning abilities. The documentary further examines the use of controlled genetic isolation. Certain urban sectors, temple complexes, and elite administrative areas show higher concentrations of these hybrids. Textual evidence suggests that the Anunnaki deliberately paired hybrids to propagate specific traits, while restricting genetic mixing with baseline humans. Statistical analysis of allele frequencies in archaeological samples indicates selective breeding across multiple generations. effectively creating subpopulations with enhanced abilities, including memory retention, abstract reasoning, and advanced motor coordination. Artifacts also support the documentary's claims. Tablets containing medical instructions and experimental procedures describe methods of inducing hybrid traits, including controlled gestation, selective fertilization, and environmental conditioning. While the language is symbolic, cross-referencing with modern genetics reveals that these instructions align with known principles of epigenetics and gene expression modulation. Certain sequences in ancient DNA correlate with stress response genes, suggesting that hybrids were conditioned for endurance in harsh mining environments. These secret experiments were not purely functional. The documentary cites ritualistic practices in which hybrids were dedicated to temple service or administrative roles, implying social and psychological conditioning. Combined with enhanced physiology, this created a class of humans capable of bridging the gap between ordinary humans and the Anunnaki overseers. The hybrid lineages eventually became embedded in Sumerian society, forming the basis for ruling elites and priesthoods. Interestingly, modern genetic studies reveal vestiges of these hybrid sequences in contemporary populations. Rare alleles associated with neurological development, skeletal robustness, and cognitive aptitude are present in isolated regions, aligning with the documentary's hypothesis that some human traits may be remnants of Anunnaki-directed selection. While environmental and cultural factors also shaped evolution, the sudden appearance of these traits in the archaeological record challenges the traditional model of gradualism. The documentary emphasizes that these forbidden experiments were not universally applied. Many early humans remained unmodified, serving as laborers or ordinary citizens. Hybrids were strategically employed in high-responsibility roles, including city planning, record-keeping, metallurgy, and astronomical observation. Their presence accelerated civilization's development and ensured the Anunnaki's objectives: gold extraction, knowledge transfer, and planetary stabilization were met efficiently. Dr. Elena Voss observed that the implications were profound. Human history may have been guided not only by environment and culture, but also by deliberate genetic intervention. The Anunnaki's influence extended beyond immediate survival and infrastructure. It shaped cognition, societal hierarchy, and even mythology. This revelation redefines the boundary between natural human evolution and directed exogenesis. The documentary concludes the segment with a cautionary note. These hybrid experiments, hidden in myth and gene sequences, remind us that human evolution was a collaborative project. The legacy of the Anunnaki persists in subtle ways, some traits visible, others dormant, waiting to be understood. By the early 21st century, satellite observations and planetary simulations revealed subtle but measurable anomalies in the outer solar system. Trans-Neptunian objects, TNOs, displayed unusual clustering of orbital elements, inclination, eccentricity, and perihelion orientation, suggesting the gravitational influence of a massive, unseen body. Some astronomers referred to this as Planet 9. Sumerian texts, the documentary claimed, called it Nibiru, the home world of the Anunnaki. Geophysical anomalies on Earth also raised questions. Studies of tidal patterns, seismic frequency, and volcanic activity showed periodic correlations roughly matching Nibiru's proposed orbital cycle of 3,600 years. While these correlations were not definitive evidence of a planetary approach, the coincidence of ancient flood myths and geological data suggested that the Sumerians had recorded real celestial events that impacted Earth. The documentary highlighted modern analogs of ancient extraction operations. Mining and industrial activities inadvertently reproduce similar environmental stresses described in cuneiform. water table disruption, erosion, and atmospheric contamination. These parallels imply that advanced civilizations, past and present, are vulnerable to planetary-scale disruptions, particularly from objects with significant mass influencing Earth's tides and tectonics. Genetic and technological traces also served as potential warning signals. Certain rare allelic sequences in human populations, linked to rapid neural response and problem-solving, are disproportionately concentrated in regions historically associated with Sumerian settlements. The documentary argued that these sequences may respond to environmental or electromagnetic triggers, suggesting a latent interaction with Anunnaki origin technology or phenomena, possibly activated during Nibiru's approach. Global climate models indicate that if a massive object like Nibiru were to enter the inner solar system, gravitational effects could cause measurable changes in Earth's rotational dynamics, oceanic tides, and tectonic stress. Historical flood deposits, isotopic shifts, and sediment cores provide evidence that similar events occurred during prior passages. The documentary synthesized these data to suggest that humanity may face cyclical environmental challenges imposed by celestial mechanics, as documented by ancient observers. Additional modern anomalies include unexplained electromagnetic fluctuations, sudden geomagnetic spikes, and periodic surges in high-altitude cosmic radiation. While conventional science attributes these to solar activity or geomagnetic variation, the documentary correlates them with predicted Nibiru transit periods derived from ancient Sumerian astronomical records. These signals, combined with mythological accounts of floods and divine intervention, imply that humanity may be entering a period of heightened cosmic influence. The documentary emphasized surveillance technology as a modern analog to Anunnaki observation. Satellites, deep space telescopes, and ground-based observatories are capable of detecting orbital perturbations, yet the precise modeling of gravitational interactions requires assumptions about unknown mass distributions, echoing ancient Sumerian claims. Historical records suggest the Anunnaki designed Earth-based monitoring stations, possibly integrated into ziggurats and temple complexes, to track Nibiru's approach and its environmental impact. In addition to physical consequences, the documentary proposed a societal dimension. Human behavior, population dynamics, and technological development may exhibit patterns influenced by latent Anunnaki intervention. Socio-cultural shifts, technological leaps, and geopolitical stressors could correspond with celestial cycles, potentially reflecting residual genetic programming in hybrid-descended populations. Dr. Elena Voss concluded the segment with a stark warning. If Nibiru or an equivalent celestial body exists, approaching within measurable distance, Earth may experience environmental, genetic, and technological repercussions reminiscent of ancient cataclysms. Humanity may be unprepared, but traces of the Anunnaki's influence, genetic, architectural, and cultural, offer clues to survival strategies encoded millennia ago. By 2026, anomalies in orbital mechanics, geophysical activity, and unexplained electromagnetic signals had become difficult to ignore. Satellites recorded minor yet consistent perturbations in the outer solar system, while ground-based observatories reported localized gravitational variations. Initially dismissed by mainstream authorities as instrumentation errors or natural phenomena, these anomalies coincided with unusual migratory patterns in wildlife and abrupt climatic events, mirroring ancient flood cycles. Dr. Elena Voss and her team began disseminating findings, linking historical data from Sumerian tablets to current geophysical readings. Presenting the combined archaeological, astronomical, and genetic evidence, They warned that Nibiru's next perihelion could have catastrophic effects. Governments responded cautiously, publicly labeling the research as speculative. However, internal intelligence documents suggested concern over global infrastructure, with undisclosed contingency planning reportedly initiated for large-scale environmental disruptions. The first tangible signs of intervention emerged in remote regions. Unexplained atmospheric disturbances, localized storms, geomagnetic spikes, and auroral events at unusual latitudes were documented. These occurrences correlated with predicted orbital paths derived from the cuneiform reconstructions of Nibiru's trajectory. Electromagnetic interference disrupted communication systems in certain regions, further fueling speculation about extraterrestrial influence. In parallel, human anomalies were observed. Populations with rare genetic sequences linked to the Adamu hybrid lineages began exhibiting heightened cognitive responses, unusual endurance, and perceptual sensitivity. Anthropologists noted correlations between these traits and survival in areas experiencing abnormal environmental stressors. The documentary argued that these manifestations were latent adaptations encoded by Anunnaki genetic interventions, potentially acting as a survival mechanism during planetary disturbances. Media coverage remained fragmented. Conspiracy theorists circulated raw satellite footage and seismic readings, while academic journals dismissed patterns as coincidental. Despite skepticism, the documentary highlighted corroborated data showing synchronous events across continents, sudden floods, heat waves, and electromagnetic surges, aligning with the predicted approach of a massive celestial body. The confrontation intensified as Dr. Voss's team attempted to coordinate with governmental space agencies. Restricted access and bureaucratic delays hindered full disclosure. Leaks of preliminary orbital models and genetic analyses sparked public debate, increasing global attention on anomalous Sumerian artifacts and hybrid lineages. Independent researchers began reproducing simulations, confirming the plausibility of gravitational disruptions consistent with Nibiru's hypothesized mass and orbit. Crucially, the documentary presented evidence of active monitoring systems left by the Anunnaki millennia ago. Ziggurats, temple complexes, and strategically aligned monuments functioned as early warning structures, calibrated to detect gravitational and solar anomalies. Modern reinterpretation suggests these ancient networks could still provide real-time data on celestial perturbations, acting as a primitive but precise alert system for planetary-scale events. Environmental modeling predicted that should Nibiru, or an equivalent celestial body, enter the inner solar system, Earth would experience a series of cascading effects: intensified tides, tectonic stress, and atmospheric disturbances capable of widespread flooding. Dr. Voss emphasized that humanity's current technological infrastructure, while advanced, remains vulnerable to systemic failure under these conditions. As the segment concluded, visible signs of return became undeniable. Unexplained auroras, magnetic spikes, and seismic anomalies accelerated worldwide. The documentary's message was stark. Humanity faces the first true confrontation with the legacy of its creators. The Anunnaki's influence is no longer confined to history. It is unfolding in real time. Will we recognize it before it is too late? The evidence, though partially suppressed, left an unmistakable impression. The planet was entering a period of elevated risk, and the hidden architects of human advancement might soon intervene once more. As the anomalies intensified, Dr. Elena Voss and her team compiled the most comprehensive synthesis of human history and Anunnaki interaction ever attempted. Radiocarbon-dated archaeological artifacts, isotopic analyses of gold, satellite imagery, and genomic data all converge to suggest a single, extraordinary conclusion. The Anunnaki did not merely visit Earth, they engineered humanity, guided civilization, and left a latent genetic blueprint that continues to influence us today. Genetic mapping revealed that segments of human DNA, primarily in non-coding regions associated with neural development, stress resilience, and cognitive adaptation, bear signatures inconsistent with evolutionary models based solely on mutation and natural selection. Comparative studies of ancient skeletal remains demonstrate abrupt physiological changes corresponding to the documented arrival of Anunnaki hybrids. Even today, rare alleles in global populations appear to correlate with enhanced problem-solving abilities, rapid adaptability, and advanced spatial reasoning, supporting the hypothesis that these traits are remnants of deliberate genetic programming. Geophysical and astronomical data further reinforce this legacy. Orbital simulations of Nibiru suggest that its current position in the outer solar system aligns with predicted perturbations observed in the asteroid belt, trans-Neptunian objects, and minor irregularities in planetary trajectories. Synchronous historical records, flood myths, and tectonic disruptions coincide with previous passages, indicating a repeating cycle of environmental influence that matches the Sumerian accounts. The documentary's most provocative claim concerned the hybridization of modern humans. Certain populations exhibit physiological and cognitive markers identical to those described in Sumerian cuneiform as the descendants of Adamu. Anthropometric analysis shows increased cranial volume, enhanced neural density, and muscular robustness in isolated regions. Remnants of genetic interventions designed to produce humans capable of managing technology, infrastructure, and societal organization at levels exceeding baseline Homo sapiens. Environmental and cultural resilience also reflects the Anunnaki legacy. Urban planning principles, hydraulic engineering, and early legal systems, rooted in Ur-Nammu's codified laws, persist as foundational structures in modern society. The transmission of knowledge through hybrid populations ensured continuity of expertise, from metallurgy and mathematics to astronomy and agriculture. Civilization's trajectory appears, in part, orchestrated. Humans were not solely the product of natural selection, but of directed enhancement, leaving a complex interplay between natural and artificial evolution. The documentary ends with a chilling revelation. Nibiru's next perihelion, projected within the next millennium, could once again intersect with Earth's gravitational field. The potential consequences, environmental, genetic, and societal, are vast. While most of humanity remains unaware, subtle triggers in hybrid-descended populations might activate adaptive responses encoded millennia ago, suggesting that the Anunnaki left contingency mechanisms to prepare humans for subsequent cosmic interactions. Dr. Voss concludes the segment with a stark warning. Humanity has inherited a legacy of knowledge, resilience, and latent capability from our creators. Yet we remain vulnerable. The Anunnaki's interventions are encoded in our very biology and history. Whether through genetics, technology, or planetary cycles, their influence persists. The question is not whether they left, but when they will act again. The screen fades to black, leaving viewers with the final call to action. If you found this revelation compelling, subscribe to follow the latest research, like the video to support continued investigation, and share your thoughts in the comments. The story of humanity's true origin has only just begun.